I was wondering from anyone on the panel, and y'all were so great and elucidative, what is the role of I feel we're in an emergency right now. It's a five-star alarm and not being treated as such. But the press in helping us and help saving us because, they had a lot of power in pushing Biden now in the New York Times, the editorials and this and that, but I don't see that effort. And if you have any ideas how to appeal to the press, other than letters to the editor or people at your level, can somehow, because they will reach the voters. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Would anyone like to
I would
answer?
like to say that Bandy's been censored.
I know.
I have been censored. I used to be in the media all the time. Every cult story, I would be on every major thing. Nope. There are corporate media empires, and at some level, are they Opus Dei? Are they Putin influence? I don't know, but there's censorship at a very high level. So all I can say is I've been doing a lot of podcasts and smaller events like this because we have to get the word out to the public.
And also that censorship has to be understood as a human rights violation. It's not currently.
And what do you do about that?
Well,
What do you do about that human rights violation?
you mean in the short term or the long term?
Short-term.
Well, in the short term, it's not a legal offense or a violation, but in the long term, we submit the declaration to the United Nations, and then it becomes normalized and incorporated into national law. But that's a long-term policy. So.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. This is terrific. And you've made a very strong, compelling case for the danger of Donald Trump. And there's been a little mention of his appeal to people. And I think there's a numerical, strategy to win. And I think we need also a deeper psychological strategy of how to appeal to them. And I've been tuning into this a lot. I have a brother who loves Trump. I live here, so I just run down and go into Trump rallies and talk to people. And I watch Fox News. And I've written about humiliation, and that's so two things. One is humiliation is real. He really tunes in to people's humiliation, and especially a segment of the population of white males, and also gender is a very big deal, and appeal to males and strength and the things that you've mentioned, but also people who are poorly educated. And I noticed, I've been analyzing the conventions for decades, and the Democratic Convention was all about love and missing their mothers who died and diversity. And the two candidates in the Trump were severely abused. I don't know if any of you saw the movie Hillbilly Elegies. And, they have Kid Rock and Hulk and Strength, and the symbolism is very different. So I think that in the last time, Hillary made people feel terrible. I mean, the Democrats insulted people. They didn't reach people. These group of people, and I think that we need the worse Hillary made them feel about themselves, the better Trump made them feel about themselves. And I know people would have voted for Bernie. So anyway, I think we need an intentional strategy to reach these people and help them feel better, and also whatever happens, to soften the blow, because even if she wins, there's going to be backlash. So we need many strategies, and this is one.
I see Dr. Herman on the screen. Dr. Herman, did you wish to answer any questions, or we can direct questions toward you? Would you like to answer any questions?
Well, I do think that a sense of humiliation is a kind of a common thread in the populations that demagogues appeal to. People who feel they are losing out to others, or that their social group is being devalued or is losing undeserved privileges. And that, I think, is the common appeal of of authoritarian leaders. They can't really offer people freedom or prosperity. So they offer people the idea of restoring a glorious past in which they will be on top. And this, it does, of course, play into the deeply embedded lost cause mythology of the Confederacy, and if you look at the red states, this is pretty much the Confederacy rising again, with also some of the white working class people who migrated up to Indiana and Ohio and places like that to work in the factories that have now closed. So I do think that I would just like to second the advice of my colleagues who have advocated reaching out to Trump followers with an attitude of respect rather than calling them a basket of deplorables. The more they feel disrespected and humiliated, the more the humiliated rage finds its expression in the cult of Trump.
Yeah, I agree very much with what you just said, and Dr. Herman, and the emphasis on humiliation. What I was struck by is how much Trump appeals to that sense of humiliation in his political rhetoric. He, for example, when he first started campaigning, he said the Democrats had made America the laughingstock of the world, in which he was basically echoing the rhetoric of Hitler that led the German people to vote for him when he was elected on the campaign promise to undo the shame of Versailles. He said the whole German nation had been humiliated and shamed by the war guilt clause of the peace treaty of Versailles. But Trump has said that repeatedly over and over again. And I think that the people who, well, and he has presented himself as the one who would restore pride and undo the shame and humiliation that he's saying the American people have suffered. And I think it's understandable in some ways who the Trump voters are. They're basically white, male, less educated, high school or less education. But in others, there are people who feel they have lost relative status because of the increased democratization that occurred in America when, with the civil rights legislation, blacks increased their status. Segregation was outlawed, and disenfranchisement was outlawed and so forth. And the increased status that women have had with the women's movement. And I think that a lot of white males have felt they had lost relative superiority and relative status. And Trump comes along and says, I will restore, I'll make America great again, which is an appeal to go back to the past before all these civil rights laws and the changes to undo all the various forms of misogyny and sexism and homophobia and so forth. So I think that if we're going to understand the psychology involved, I think that's true. And finally, I totally agree. It's the worst thing we can do is refer to the Trump voters as deplorables. I think we have to recognize their they're basically the same as the rest of us. They're as intelligent. They're very, they're not psychopaths inherently. They're just following a psychopath. And so we have to find a way to be, I think, understanding and generous and treat people with respect, even when we think they're making great mistakes and really harming themselves as well as other people.
What gives me hope is that the women may save us. I think that the appeal of women, the whole anti-abortion and all of that business, and the freedom and human rights, I think the women are going to come save us. That's my hope.
Well, when someone has made a big mess, that's what we're for, right? We cleaned up other people's messes.
Dr. Friedman?
It's not just the women who will save us, it's the part of men that are very much like women in that they have a capacity for kindness and for caring about others. I think we need to remember that Richard Hofstadter wrote a book in the 60s called The Paranoid Style in American Politics. We have always had problem with paranoid feelings and the sense that when you tell people they're in danger, it tends to mobilize in some people more their paranoid core. And the more we're aware of the fact that danger can be constructed, and we can attack all of Trump's personality disorders, but the fact is that he appeals to people, and we have to understand it not in a kind way, but in a technical way, that there is more paranoia in the population than is acknowledged, and he can mobilize it, and we don't know how far it will continue to hold against a black woman who presents herself as entirely reasonable, speaking to their needs, and will it overcome people's fear that they are going to be displaced by people of color, that they are going to lose their prestige and their dominance. So I think we have to not be so respectful of people who follow Trump, but we have to understand that they're in the throes of paranoid mechanisms.